Yes, Edmundo, so share your screen whenever you're ready. So our first presenter is Edmundo Werner, and he is at the Centre for the Integrated Delivery of the Built Environment at the School of the Built Environment and Architecture at London South Bank University. And his paper is on the more local, the better, green jobs and climate justice in the United States, urban built fabric. So you're free to start, Edmundo. So you have 15 minutes. It'd be best if it was 10-minute presentation, and then 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody in Melbourne. Good morning or good evening for the colleagues who are in other parts of the world. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to make this presentation, although I could not go to Australia. Can you see my screen? A slide?
Yes, you need to put it on slideshow. There you go.
Yes,
Thanks.
yes. You can see it now.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So this presentation is part of ongoing research with colleagues from the University of Iowa in the United States, especially Professor Monica Haddad, also Erin Ritter and Württemberger, in efforts to mitigate climate change should strive for climate justice. And as the built environment contributes considerably to greenhouse gas emissions, it is imperative for cities to implement changes. Considering the magnitude of problems generated specifically in American cities, this paper focuses on such localities. In the context of climate justice, such change can consist in making green jobs available to those who need them most. Within this context, the aim of this paper is to provide a systemic literature review, as it will be explained with some findings and suggestions for the future. So this slide shows the structure of the presentation. The findings, the review and the findings from the literature is divided into the 4 items that are on the screen, starting with a broad view of social justice and climate justice, and gradually focusing on the green economy, then in green jobs, and then on training, which is the subject of our research. The specific subject is training for green jobs, but then we need to start with a broad view. In terms of social justice and climate justice, the origins and linkages of these concepts first was environmental justice. Climate justice came from environmental justice, but at the same time, it has been very much connected to the movements for racial justice, especially in the United States. And the point is that the right to enjoy the benefits of climate mitigation in cities is not equally distributed. A lot has been done and is being done to mitigate climate change, but there is still this is still uneven. Although at the same time there is a progressive shift in local planning and policy to promote climate justice, and this is being advocated, and this slide shows the 4 examples. Of course, everything I'm saying is detailed in the paper. So progress shift has happened in terms of involving disconnected youth in the green economy, involving key stakeholders aligned with the disadvantaged communities, ensuring marginalized populations access to living wage, green jobs, and strengthening alliances. So climate mitigation and social justice do not have one universal solution. They need specific tailor-made solutions, and bringing all these findings together show that the green economy can play a central role, which is the next theme. So I'm trying to, okay, the green economy and the climate justice. This is the second part of the literature review. There has been criticisms as well as opportunities. Basically, the criticisms is that the efforts to promote a green economy, they focused on environmental and economic dimensions, but they not necessarily brought in the social dimension, equity issues, and also local level policies at the same time that they brought in benefits for the environment and economy. They overlooked the regional strategies, and the bottom-up approach have been unable to gain traction. Local governments in many countries lack control over key areas which are not under the administration, and strategies need to be country specific. But there are also opportunities. Green policies can reduce labor taxations linked to market-based instruments, and environmental tax reform can boost economic growth and employment. So it's possible to join environment and economic dimensions with the social dimension. Local governments can promote green jobs programs and policies with a positive impact on the three pillars of sustainability. And the paper provides many examples, specific examples from US cities, because it focuses on the US. There is still room for improvement. Climate and job goals can appear contradictory because of what I mentioned before, and an economic approach that centers human rights is needed to reconcile these goals with taking advantage of the benefits of structural change. Having said this, I'm trying to move for the next slide, but okay. So then we go into green jobs. The concept of green jobs is basically environmentally friendly jobs combined with decent work, which is, so it's jobs which are good for the environment, but at the same time, jobs which have good quality. This is where environmental protection, economic growth, and social opportunities meet. There are still challenges because still there are lots of cases of bias towards gentrification and concentration of greening and jobs in richer areas of cities, this shows the needs to intervene. And local recessions have led many local authorities to promote non-green industries, even if they understand the need to green the built environment in the cities. Sometimes they have not done as much as they could have done. Opportunities: cities need to implement or increase investments on the green economy, otherwise impact will be irreversible. And there are more and more initiatives to finance green growth, more and more advocacy and awareness, more and more opportunities for green jobs. In order for all this to be realized, training is essential, particularly for vulnerable populations. This leads us to the last body of literature that we have reviewed. And the issue is to bring training for low-skilled workers, not to leave it for the upper-skilled workers, because then through training in green jobs, we can use this as instruments to increase equity. So training is essential for the inclusion of vulnerable low-income populations. There are a number of strategies that have been used in the US and elsewhere, like updating community college programs, linking excluded workers with enterprise-led training, trade union-based programs, and programs with mixed actors of different types. So there are, in a nutshell, there have been programs promoted by the public sector, programs promoted by trade unions, and promoted by private enterprises, as well as mixed programs promoted by different mixes of actors. There are still challenges. In some, there is still a limited reach and misalignment between technological development and the training curricula. Challenges need to be addressed and efficiency increased. And in all, the literature is positive regarding the existing efforts to train low-income people in green jobs as a way to improve climate justice. To conclude, if the slide goes ahead, well, this is the flow of the paper. Just to recap, we started generally with the social justice and climate justice, from this to the green economy, from this to the green jobs and training. Finally, the conclusion, this paper revised and brought together separate bodies of knowledge, not noted in the previous slide. In some, the findings related to urban development note that the literature reassures the importance of the green economy and related jobs, compounded with the role of local authorities. Green jobs can be an instrument to promote climate justice, in our case, in the urban areas. There are still challenges, and the existence of challenges, they reassure the need for further research as well as action. The way forward is to address the challenges and to improve, and it's not to give up. So the paper concludes with some suggestions for research, and they are in the paper, also in the slide. There are different, several suggestions from the interconnectedness of urban policies and social ideologies, implications of the green economy for the labor market, ownership of the built environment, defining similarities between successful programs to establish good practices, and others. The last one mentioned in this slide, the last suggestion for research, point F, is that best practices should be acknowledged along with additional suggestions. This is the point that our research is picking up, and so we are following up this review of the literature with concrete case studies in the US, especially the ones which have been successful, to see how they have addressed the challenges, how they managed to be successful, what are the impacts and suggestions for the future. So this is the presentation. Thank you very much. And if you have questions and comments, I'm here to, I'll be happy to respond. Thank you again.
So is everyone muted at the moment on there?
Everyone's muted, but they have the option.
Yeah. So if you want to ask a question, you can unmute yourselves and ask away. We probably have time just probably for one question. Edmundo, oh, sorry.
No, yeah, I'm available by email or WhatsApp if anybody wants to contact me later. I'm going to write my email here in the chat in case there is no time for questions now, but anyone has interest later.
Okay, well, it looks like there isn't any questions, and Edmundo's put his email up there for people that want to contact him. So that Pedro Roca's the next presenter. Do you want to share your screen, Pedro, or do you need us to bring up your presentation? He's muted.
Hi, do you hear me? I would ask to be presenter, but you already put it. Thanks. I'm going to share my screen.
Great, thank you.
While I'm doing it, good night, everybody. Good night. Good morning. I'm Pedro.
So Pedro, it might be best if you introduce yourself and the university you're at, because my Spanish is very poor and I'd do a very, very bad job. So if you can tell us, what your position is and the university you're at, and then you're welcome to start your presentation.
Yes, thank you. I was going to do it. I'm Pedro Neves da Rocha. I'm from Brazil. I'm sharing my camera so you can see me. Hi, I'm Pedro Neves da Rocha. I'm from Brazil. I'm from Universidade Estadual Paulista, Unesp, and I'm here to present work about learning on the job through Bing. It was a work made with several people. I think we are in 5 authors. The first author, Gita, is made this research as part of her PhD, and I helped her in this section of her research, and we made together this presentation. I am here to represent the group. Well, can I start?
Yes, go ahead and start your slideshow.
Is it? Okay.
Yes, 10 minutes, and then some time for questions.
Okay, thank you. It's 3 a.m. in Brazil, so I'm talking a little strange. Sorry. Well, our jobs, as I said, is focused on learning on the job through being collaborative learning. I'm Pedro. This is my email. I can put it on the chat later. Well, first, the theme, our focus was in the learning teaching of BIM, building information modeling, a paradigm for gaining efficiency in the construction sector. And it's our research showed that the BIM is not quite concretizing well in the market, and the reasons that we saw are the lack of being understanding and training. There are several researches about it, but most of them focus about the formal education of BIM, and more of that focus on the programmatic content on the courses of the architecture or courses of engineering, and it's not having the best effects because being it's a relatively new technology and many people are now in the market. They have studied several years ago, decades ago, and even if even the new people studying now are entering the market now. And because of that, we think that it's important that the learning of being must happen, must be implemented during work, on the job formation, or in service formation, in service training. There are many terms for that. In a previous research, we saw that not many research focus on the in-service training, on the job formation. Just from 143 research that we reviewed before, only 3 focused on non-formal education. 25 focused on education, but all of them, as we said, were focused on the graduation courses, on the universities, on the first formation of the new workers. So to achieve this education on the job, this non-formal education, we proposed the use of reference based on Vygotsky and psychologist Actor from Russia, and sorry. He's a very famous author from education, and we use from him the theory of zone of proximal development and the learning with pairs, learning with partners. It's a way to improve education, improve learning, and improve teaching. More horizontal, not so vertical as the formal education normally is. Well, going on, besides Vygotsky, we also used the theory of collaborative learning, and it's from Miranda Correia and Infante Malaquias. And now we see the difference from three ways of collaboration in learning processes. The vertical collaboration is the most common, as in the formal education, the difference of status from the professor and the students. But we have a horizontal way of collaboration that it's not so asymmetry between the partners, and the horizontal collaboration that has low asymmetry of power between the participants of the collaboration learning process. Well, what we did with these fundamentals. From 2010 to 2015, in a micro enterprise of architecture in Brazil, we developed a collaborative learning process, and this happened between the architects, between the interns, between the leader, and they all developed the appropriation, the collective appropriation of being, while they were in the normal development of the enterprise. What we did was later, now in 2021, see these records that were registered there from email, and we analyzed the ways of collaboration that happened there that helped them to appropriate themselves from being in that micro enterprise. Rita was the leader of that micro enterprise, so we had access to these records. Well, they had kind of a journal, and it was sent to the leader, reporting their activities, and we could see if there was collaboration between them, between the leader and the members of the enterprise, and between them from what they reported. Well, this is a graph that shows the functional progress from the participants. I'm not going to check this very much. It is on the paper, but you can see the evolution of them as they were progressing and learning new things and developing themselves. And to see also the number of people, they were kind of the ones that they stood there for long was, I don't know, like 10, 15. Well, what did we do? We used content analysis to categorize the emails in 4 themes: individual action, diagonal collaboration, horizontal collaboration, and vertical collaboration between these 5 years. And what we saw is that there were more cases of vertical collaboration, as they were talking in a high asymmetry power situation between the leader and the other people. But we also saw some cases of diagonal collaboration, many cases of individual action, but we also saw many cases of horizontal collaboration. People shared their experience between them as they were helping themselves, and they were in a low asymmetry power condition, and we saw that it was the second most thing that happened then in that situation. Some cases of interaction between the leader and the other people were also saw as diagonal collaboration from one of the analysts. So we can see that there was both cases, like vertical or diagonal, and there was the horizontal collaboration. And we saw between, as we see here, the functional progress, we could conclude that this process of helping themselves in a collaborative way helped people to appropriate themselves from being in a way with much more potential that if it would happen in a vertical way. I think this is one of the most important things that this theory is bringing. In time to conclude, we believe that learning is a collective process and is a collaborative process, and when we can transform this vertical relation in a more diagonal or in a horizontal collaboration, it has many gains for the learners. They can learn more and they can develop more. And if this happens in the job, in the enterprise, they can evolve much more in their function. As being is innovation technology, it's constantly changing, and it's important to be in an environment that you can learn in service. Well, these are things about the concept analysis, and the conclusion is more this: the potential of collaborative learning to be a teaching and learning method on the job for the workers of the enterprise. This was, as I said, this was part of Rita's PhD research, and it gave some steps forward for her research. Well, thank you. Sorry for I was a little nervous from the language, from the time, but thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Pedro. We probably have time for probably one question from the group. So if you want a question, if you can unmute yourselves and ask. Pedro, I'll ask a question. I did look through your paper. I know one of the questions that I'm always interested in from a curriculum development perspective is, we build our curriculum usually around what are called student learning outcomes, what students need to know. And what you've found is how the learning occurred through the strategies, through the levels of communication. But I wondered if, when you were sort of doing the content analysis, if you came up with sort of themes of consistent topics and skills that those individuals, particularly the younger people that have just started, that did you find any sort of themes that they were trying to learn?
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, what's your name?
Richard.
Richard, thank you,
Yeah.
Richard. For the younger people from the interns, we could see that they had several questions about the operations. They were questions more about how can I say, more about the technical operations from the Beam software that we use, and not so much about the essence of the design, like they were able to design with other softwares, more traditional softwares, and they didn't know how to do it in the Beam software. And the youngest ones, they always made questions about these things, like, I can do this in the other program. How can I do that thing in this program? But as
what we'd call procedural knowledge.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, this kind of knowledge. But as they were evolving, they were also making questions more profound. As can I say? I don't know. They were more complex questions. Like the reason to do something, the meaning of something, the gains from some kind of design, the possibility to put information in the design. They were gaining like some critical thinking about their process as designers as they were developing. You know, when they were in the lowest levels from that graph, were more procedural, as you said. When they were leveling up, they were talking more like more a mature way, you know.
Great. Okay, well, thank you, Pedro. I appreciate it. So if you could stop your screen sharing, and then Choy, I think Chia is up next.
Yeah.
Chia, do you want to share your screen?
Yes, I will share from my end. Hi.
Hi. So if you can share your presentation.
Yes.
Has he got permission? Yeah.
Yeah. Give me a second.
Okay.
I'm uploading my file. Yes.
Excellent.
Can you see my screen?
We can, yes. So if you want to introduce yourself, and then you can go ahead again. You've got, if you can try and make it a 10-minute presentation, that will leave us 5 minutes for questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Chia. I'm from Universiti Tunku Rahman, Malaysia. So Malaysia time now is 2 hours later than Melbourne. So we are about 2 o'clock. Good afternoon and good morning for others colleagues. Now my topic is comparisons of a data skill perceived by the undergraduate and graduate in quantity surveying program of Malaysia. The Price Waterhouse had published a paper early on, a report early on, Workforce of the Future, which could, the digital platform and AI can create a thriving marketplace. It can grow to take over the entire economic system. And similarly, for the Royal Institute of a Chapter Surveyor, it come out with a report, the Future Report 2020, which say RICS has been using data to help drive good practice across the profession since our inceptions. In many ways, we can lay claim to be the original data champions. So that is the reason why we are looking at the data skill of a quantity surveyor in this respect. Now, in Malaysian's context, we have a Malaysian qualification framework. The digital skill is part under the functional skill of the learning outcome of all the higher education institutions. And Wiley have conducted a study which is known as the Digital Skill Gap Index. They have studied 134 economics and location, which Malaysia is placed at number 10 out of 134 countries. of course, the highest score is Singapore, then followed by some of the Northern Europe country. Now, digital and data, we are use these two terms as interchangeable for this paper concern. Digital and data, they are interrelated. Company use a digital product and services to collect data about their customer and to update and transform their process, products, services with digital platform and tools. Data is a key pillar for digital transformation. Every interaction in the digital world generates data. Because of the paper or the literature or the report available. So the data and digital, we have to make use of the literature, which are either coding as a data or digital in this respect. Okay. Now, our research aim and objective of this paper is to examine the differences in the data skill acquired by the quantity surveying undergraduate and graduates, and compare whether quantity surveying undergraduate and graduate, they are differ in their perceptions towards the data skill they have acquired or ought to be taught. The literature we have gone through, there are many definitions of a data and digital skill, which have selected three for these presentations to highlight. First of all, APEC Closing the Digital Skill Gap Report categorize the digital skill as a basic technical skill, applied technical skill, software, hardware, technical skill, destructive technical skill. Malaysia qualification framework, which I have mentioned earlier, define the digital skill as an ability to use information digital technology to support work and study. And the skill include sourcing and storing information, processing data, using application for problem solving and communication, as well as acting in applying digital skill. Centre of Digital Build Britain, CDBB, have categorized digital skill or data skill as a data fundamentals, life cycle assurance and quality management, data modeling, analytics and intelligence, experience and application, security and ethics. So literature we have reviewed, we synthesize there are 5 data skill categories, which are data collection, data processing, data analytics, data ethics, data privacy. And all these 5 categories can be subdivided into the 13 subcategories. Based on these 5 main categories and 13 subcategories, we have developed 30 statements to represent the activity of the practitioners or people need to use about the data to include it in our questionnaire. Now, these are the example of the statement, subcategory, and category of the statement we use in the questionnaire. Basically, we ask 2 questions. The first question is about how do you rate yourself in the following. So for the 5 and 13 subcategory on all the 30 statements, this is the other category and subcategory. So this is the 5th category and the 4th and the 5th category. The second questions we ask is, do the following ought to be taught or in the higher education institution? So we are using the same 30 statement in our questionnaire survey on all the 5 category and 13 category I mentioned early on. And the data we are analyzed, first of all, we are testing the internal consistency of our construct by using the Globant's alpha coefficients to test the reliability. Then we also make use of the McWhinney U test to compare the significant difference between 2 groups of the respondents. We have received altogether 570 respondents. The slide shows that the attribute or the breakdown of the 570 respondents. As you can see, we have the graduate is about 1/3, 33.8%, and the undergraduate is forms the 2/3 of the respondents. And these are the higher education institutions in Malaysia offer the quantity surveying program. Now, based on our research, based on the result we analyzed, we found out that the respondents self-assess, the graduate self-assess, they are higher than the undergraduate on all the 5 digital skills, cover data collection, data processing, data analysis, data privacy, and data ethics. And out of the 30 skills we have, or the 30 statements, we have identified 22 out of the 30. The graduate appear more confident than the undergraduates. So for those we isolated, or we conclude that that is a more statistically significant is those value are less than the p-value are less than 0.05. And the graduate also perceived higher than the undergraduate on all the 5 digital skills ought to be taught in the higher education institutions, which in generally, the order of the ranking is similar, except that for the graduates, they will think the data analysis are more are higher priority than the data processing, which ought to be included in the higher education institutions. But however, for the undergraduate, they are thinking that they perceive that the data processing is higher than the data analytics. And another key finding, what we found out is the data ethics. On the data ethics, the graduates also have a score higher than what they perceive they are on the earlier questions, on the self-assessment questions. So out of the 30 skills, again, there are 22 which are statistically significant. Lastly, based on in a nutshell, what we can conclude over here is the graduate in generally perceive all the data skills need to be enhanced in the course curriculum of higher education institution. And data ethics is a self-assessed as the least competent digital skill category. So graduate rate it as the second priority skill to be taught in the higher education institution, while undergraduate rank it as the 3rd position. And the data analysis is the top priority skill need to be enhanced by the higher education institutions. Now, of course, due to the limitations of the length of the paper and time constraint, what we are going through here is only on the aggregated level of all the 5 categories. That's all for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions at all? Okay. So we're running a little bit behind. So John, are you there? Oh, we do have a question. Someone has a hand up.
Yeah.
Hi, it's Fida here.
Yeah, Fida.
Thank you very much, Chia, for your presentation. I just wonder, like, I know it's a bit out of scope question, but I mean, once you're done with this assessment and identification, that you realize that there is a need of these particular skills to be taught in a more and better way. So what is your like next stage of this research? I mean, are you planning to continue this, or are you thinking to integrate such things in your curriculum or etc.?
Yeah, definitely. Because what I explained, what I presented is at the aggregated level. So our original question, we have a detail on what forms, for example, data analytics. Then what the industry people feel that it should be have a more training than the from those undergraduate, those students still from the university. So with this, that is a very valuable information for us to enhance our course curriculum.
Yeah.
Answer your question, Bandar?
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for that.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Okay. So if you could stop sharing your screen, and John, if you've got your presentation, if you can share your screen.
Thank you.
Okay, and I see Todd is online as well. So so our next presenters are John Posilico and Todd Stanislav. John's from Birmingham City University and Todd is from Ferris State University. And their topic is the scholarship of teaching and learning for construction management education amidst the fourth industrial revolution. So John, whenever you're ready.
Yep. Thanks, Richard. Yeah, so as Richard mentioned, my name is John, my colleague Todd here, and we'll just go over a quick outline for the session that we have, and it's kind of 5 main points. First being the context of the social ecosystem, going into our research inquiry, jumping into the 3 recommendations that have come out of that, providing an applied example, and then asking opportunity for questions and answers and the like.
Perhaps a good starting place would be to sort of give a little bit of a context for the scholarship of teaching and learning. John already used the acronym SOTL, so you'll probably hear me say that as well. But SOTL, or the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning, is the systematic inquiry into questions that we have, broadly speaking, about teaching and learning. I like to draw from Randy Bass from Georgetown University and his way of describing the scholarship of teaching and learning. Every time a teacher teaches a course, they're engaged in an experiment. The syllabus, for example, is a hypothesis that if I teach the class in this way, if I teach the material in this order, and if students do certain things, then I hypothesize something will happen. Students will learn, they'll grow, they'll benefit. What's often missing then is the final step of what an experimental mode would be, which is this is my hypothesis, and this is the unfolding, and now I have to look closely at examine my hypothesis, and then finally make this work public. So that sort of sets the stage for understanding a kind of concept or definition of the scholarship of teaching and learning. But the field is really a broad and deep ecosystem, one that has a rich history of having particular context. There are seminal works that have been published over the years and key people. And this scholarly work has now become recognized as a legitimate form of faculty creative and scholarly work. And it's one that's based in our own traditions of our disciplines and interdisciplinary research methods and ways of knowing, or epistemology. This work, once made public, today we have lots and lots of publication outlets for this work, as well as presentation venues. This conference is a perfect example of that. It's a growing international community, one that's supported and advocated by many professional and disciplinary societies, and kind of time. Perhaps the ultimate validation of this ecosystem is that it has a Wikipedia page. You'll find teaching and learning on Wikipedia. But of course, what really brought us to this work is our curiosity about the extent to which construction management education is present in this ecosystem.
And that led us to three main questions. First being, how prevalent is SOTL in construction management education? Where is the work occurring? And what are shared areas of inquiry? And those three questions led directly into our methodology. And I'm going to go through this rather quickly, one, for the sake of time, and two, to kind of get to some of the findings. So the first being, we did a keyword search in the Scopus and Web of Science databases utilizing Prisma, came up with 1,800 unique publications, which we then were able to apply some bibliometric and scientometric analysis on there, identifying key dates, publication outlets, authors, co-author relationships, and more importantly, highly represented academic disciplines that are already engaged with SOTL. From those publications, we took the abstracts, titles, and keywords and put those into Voyant tools to look at the frequency of keywords and the disciplines involved. And from that aggregate, we are able to come up with two things. One were the highly occurring keywords, but more importantly, the areas of inquiry that were shared or that were common amongst all, such as the effectiveness of teaching and institutional practices on student learning. From that, we were able to carry on with our analysis. And obviously, time doesn't allow us to unpack all of these findings. We recommend that you look at the paper for all of that, as numerous colleagues have mentioned. But one really interesting finding with this was the pure absence of construction management education in SOTL. So from that finding, we were kind of perplexed and wondering, okay, as a profession, as academics, how do we get involved with this? How do we step up to the plate with SOTL? And that led us to our three recommendations.
So we find ourselves in the midst of industry. Perhaps the perfect time to ask questions around the role of digital technologies. And one digital technology that has really had inroads in the industry is virtual reality. It's prevalent in many of the fields and in the industry today. But the question that often we find ourselves asking is, to what extent is virtual reality being used in the classroom? So given the presence of virtual reality in the industry, it behooves us to ask then, so how in ways can virtual reality be leveraged? So it offers us a chance to sort of explore shared interests and inquiries. It also, one of the other recommendations is that we can utilize the literature itself to begin to find both methods and examples of research questions and gaps in recommendation is that we build communities of practice. So identifying shared interests and inquiries, utilizing the literature to sort of guide and inspire our work, and also then to build strong communities of practice, cohorts and colleagues working together to investigate shared questions about teaching and learning. I gave a little bit of a hint of an example of a shared inquiry, but I'll let John pick it up from there.
Yeah, no worries, Todd. And being that virtual reality is so embedded and is an emerged technology in Industry 4.0 today, we really kind of, that's that shared inquiry, that's that starting point. And what other disciplines out there are doing that, and that led us to utilizing some additional SOTL literature to then reflect upon our construction management absence.
So there are two papers that we wanted to draw attention to just as examples. This first published just this year is a paper that I think gives us really helpful insights into gaps in the field. And so it can point to the kinds of research questions that we could be asking about virtual reality in the classroom. The second paper is interesting because it shows the breadth of virtual reality across multiple disciplines. So we begin to see the potential for collaborators in fields like astronomy, biology, nursing, and medicine. And finally, those papers themselves give us insights into where we might find collaborators. The authors of these papers come from these 4 countries: Norway, Germany, Liechtenstein, and Australia itself. But oftentimes we don't have to look so far to find potential collaborators. Often our colleagues across the hall are asking similar questions, and those questions could be points of shared interest and inquiry for us. As well, oftentimes colleagues in other programs or departments across the university, from mathematics to biology to medicine, psychology, are also interested in understanding what role virtual reality can have in advancing student learning. Plus, we have colleagues across our regions who are undoubtedly interested in many of these same questions.
Exactly. And I think the key with this is any discipline, but especially one disengaged from SOTL, such as construction management education, risks utilizing significantly outdated, ineffective educational theories and teaching practices. And doing that leaves our students with a grossly inadequate educational experience, lack of development of essential skills, not only for life, but for the workplace itself, especially in the midst of Industry 4.0. So these 3 recommendations are a safe, easy starting point for construction management educators to start engaging in SOTL and start talking and getting a seat at the SOTL table, which we're in so desperate need of. So with that, we like to just continue the dialogue. And obviously our contact information is there. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your opinions and whatnot, but kind of putting one of those recommendations into practice, starting that community practice right here and now.
Great. So before I ask a whole bunch of questions, are there any questions from any of the other attendees? So I would tell you, I've done a lot of scholarship in teaching and learning and construction management over the years, and I enjoy it a lot. But the concerns I always hear from other administrators is that scholarship of teaching and learning will very rarely get you any external funding whatsoever. And I wonder if as part of your ongoing research, if you're going to look into where those sources of money are that might help younger researchers get involved in the scholarship of teaching and learning. What are the basic rewards for someone that's going to be involved in this sort of scholarship?
That's a great question, Richard, and that's one of the reasons why Todd and I collaborated with this. My role as lecturer in construction management is one aspect, and Todd is actually the director of the Faculty Center for Teaching and Learning, so directly engaged with SOTL at Ferris State. So I'll turn it over to Todd to see if he wants to comment on that question from a faculty standpoint.
Richard, I too appreciate the question, and it is an interesting point of sort of my own research interests as well, as to try to understand where those sources of money reside. Some of what I've noticed, at least in the U.S., is a lot of it is foundational money, foundations, private often foundations across the country. Particular disciplines. So there's a great deal of money, I think, from foundations in the US to try to increase the number of STEM students. So that often leads to questions about how do we retain STEM students, which often becomes scholarship of teaching and learning questions. There's some federal funding for this, but I think a sort of an analysis of that would be really interesting. The other area that I'm interested in understanding as to what role do professional societies, disciplinary societies, what role do they have in advocating for the scholarship of teaching and learning as both a legitimate form of scholarly work for faculty, one that has meaning and career development for them, but also trying to advocate for funding for that work. I think that resonates with Richard, what your thoughts are about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've always, it's when I was a tenure track faculty, there were some of the faculty that they said, well, you need to publish in the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning to demonstrate that you're an excellent teacher, that you're always trying to continually improve your teaching. And then the other folks were saying, yeah, but you need to go out and get external funding to do your research. And it's really difficult. And I've always thought that there's a missing link in, if you're an excellent teacher, how do you prove that? That's the dilemma, is those people that are continually trying to improve their teaching by doing scholarship of teaching and learning, and I know a lot of people that are doing that, is how do they get the recognition that they're excellent teachers? And I've always thought the missing link, and this is something that we've talked about within the Associated Schools of Construction in the United States, is there a way that you can somehow have peer review of teaching? And that's a difficult one. But I think that's an area where I think, that I think if you're going to be looking forward is, well, how do you peer review someone's teaching? And, it's not easy. I've seen people do teaching portfolios. If you design a new course, you might be able to write a paper on designing that new course and get that peer reviewed. But it's an area, I'm glad you guys are looking at it, because I think it's an area that does need some attention. And we're starting to see at our institution, the scholarship of teaching and learning have a little bit more value, because the institutions are starting to realize that teaching is becoming a lot more important, that students are wanting, if they're spending a lot of money to come to a university, they want value for money. They want good quality teaching, and they want to learn stuff that gets them moving forward in their lives. That was more of a rant than a question. But I think I just as a sidebar, I think this is my 4th CIB conference. This is the most papers we've ever had on construction education at a CIB conference. So I think, there seems to be a little bit more interest amongst academics in doing good scholarship of teaching and learning. And I mean, some of the papers here are really interested in sort of some of the topics to look at.
Even in this session, these papers.
Yeah, even in this session. Yeah. 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 So are there any other questions for John and Todd? Well, thanks everyone. I really appreciate it. It's been a great session. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Richard, for hosting. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Yep.